In the summer of 2020, as American teenagers scrolled endlessly through dance videos and viral challenges, few understood they were participating in what national security experts would later call one of the largest data harvesting operations in modern history. ByteDance, the Chinese technology conglomerate behind TikTok, had quietly assembled detailed digital profiles of over 100 million Americans, with particularly granular data on users aged 13 to 24. The app that promised 15 seconds of fame was simultaneously conducting what amounted to mass surveillance, collecting everything from precise location coordinates to keystroke patterns, from facial recognition data to private messages that users believed were ephemeral. By 2020, TikTok had been downloaded over 2 billion times globally, making it the most successful Chinese consumer application to penetrate Western markets. But behind the algorithm that seemed to read users' minds with uncanny accuracy lay a sophisticated data collection apparatus that would trigger a constitutional crisis, force congressional hearings, and nearly result in the complete prohibition of the platform in the United States. This is the story of how ByteDance turned social media entertainment into a national security threat, and how American lawmakers scrambled to address a new kind of warfare that weaponized our own digital appetites against us. ByteDance's origins trace back to 2012, when Zhang Yiming founded the company in Beijing with the vision of using artificial intelligence to revolutionize content distribution. Zhang, a software engineer who had previously worked at Microsoft and founded several smaller tech ventures, understood that traditional social media platforms relied on social graphs to determine what users saw. His revolutionary insight was that machine learning could eliminate the need for users to follow specific accounts or friends, instead using behavioral data to predict what content would generate the highest engagement. The company's first major success came with Toutiao, a news aggregation app that used algorithms to personalize content feeds based on user behavior patterns, reading habits, and demographic information. By 2016, Toutiao had attracted over 78 million daily active users in China, validating Zhang's thesis that data-driven content curation could be more powerful than social connections. However, Zhang recognized that to build a truly global technology empire, ByteDance would need to expand beyond China's borders and capture markets in the United States and Europe. The vehicle for this expansion would be a short-form video app that initially launched in China as Douyin in September 2016, before being rebranded as TikTok for international markets in 2018. The app's success was immediate and explosive, but so was its data collection methodology, which far exceeded what users understood they were consenting to when they downloaded what appeared to be a simple entertainment application. The scope of TikTok's data harvesting went far beyond what users might expect from a social media platform, encompassing categories of information that had clear intelligence value for foreign surveillance operations. According to internal ByteDance documents later obtained by investigators, TikTok collected biometric identifiers, including face prints and voice prints, tracking users' facial features and speech patterns even when they were not actively creating content. The app accessed users' precise location data every time it was opened, building detailed maps of where Americans lived, worked, traveled, and spent their leisure time. Perhaps more concerning, TikTok captured clipboard data, meaning that any text users had recently copied on their devices was automatically transmitted to ByteDance servers, potentially including passwords, personal messages, financial information, or confidential work documents. The application also collected device identifiers, Wi-Fi network information, and Bluetooth connection data, allowing ByteDance to build comprehensive profiles of users' physical environments and social networks. Internal company emails revealed that ByteDance engineers had designed TikTok to continue data collection even when the app was running in the background, monitoring which other applications users had installed, how frequently they used them, and even capturing screenshots of their activity on other platforms. The company collected keystroke dynamics, analyzing the unique patterns of how users typed to create behavioral fingerprints that could identify individuals even if they created new accounts or used different devices. Most disturbing to national security experts was TikTok's collection of draft content that users created but never published, giving ByteDance access to Americans' unfiltered thoughts, opinions, and private moments that they had specifically chosen not to share publicly. ByteDance's data collection apparatus was enabled by a deliberately opaque privacy policy that buried the most invasive practices in dense legal language that few users would read or understand. The company's initial privacy policy was over 3,000 words long and written at a graduate-level reading comprehension, making it inaccessible to the teenage demographic that comprised TikTok's core user base. The policy included broad language granting ByteDance permission to collect information you provide, automatically collected information, and information from other sources, categories so vague they could justify virtually unlimited data harvesting. Crucially, the privacy policy included clauses allowing ByteDance to share user data with corporate affiliates, which included dozens of subsidiaries and partner companies, many of which were directly controlled by or had significant ties to the Chinese government. The company also reserved the right to transfer user data to servers located anywhere in the world, despite repeated public claims that American users' data was stored exclusively in Singapore and Virginia. Security researchers who analyzed TikTok's code discovered that the app contained multiple encrypted data transmission pathways, making it impossible for users, regulators, or even cybersecurity experts to fully understand what information was being collected and where it was being sent. The app's terms of service included forced arbitration clauses that prevented users from filing class action lawsuits, effectively eliminating legal recourse for privacy violations. Perhaps most troubling, ByteDance retained ownership rights over all content created on the platform, including user-generated videos, comments, and even private direct messages, creating a vast library of American cultural content and personal communications that could be analyzed for intelligence purposes. The national security implications of ByteDance's data collection became clear when U.S. intelligence agencies began analyzing the potential uses of the information being harvested from American users. TikTok's detailed location data could be used to identify and track U.S. military personnel, intelligence operatives, and government employees, potentially exposing sensitive facilities, travel patterns, and operational security protocols. The app's penetration of American military bases was particularly concerning, with service members unknowingly sharing their locations, daily routines, and even glimpses of classified facilities through their TikTok activity. Intelligence analysts noted that the granular demographic and psychographic data ByteDance was collecting could be used to identify potential intelligence assets, blackmail targets, or individuals susceptible to foreign influence operations. The company's access to Americans' private messages, search histories, and even unposted content provided unprecedented insight into the private thoughts and vulnerabilities of millions of U.S. citizens, including government employees, military personnel, and critical infrastructure workers. Perhaps most concerning was TikTok's ability to shape information consumption through its recommendation algorithm, which could potentially be manipulated to spread disinformation, suppress certain viewpoints, or influence American public opinion on key political and social issues. The app's particular appeal to younger Americans meant that ByteDance was effectively gaining unprecedented access to the minds and habits of an entire generation, potentially shaping their worldviews during crucial formative years. Intelligence experts noted that the data collection pattern resembled classic intelligence operations, where foreign adversaries build comprehensive dossiers on target populations to identify recruitment opportunities, plan influence operations, and gather intelligence on adversary capabilities and intentions. The Chinese government's relationship with ByteDance became a central concern for U.S. lawmakers and intelligence officials who understood that Chinese law required domestic companies to cooperate with state intelligence gathering. China's national intelligence law, enacted in 2017, explicitly requires Chinese organizations and citizens to support, assist, and cooperate with state intelligence work, and grants Chinese intelligence agencies broad authority to compel companies to provide data, access, and assistance for national security purposes. ByteDance's corporate structure included numerous subsidiaries and partnerships with Chinese state-owned enterprises, creating multiple pathways through which the Chinese government could access TikTok's American user data. Several ByteDance executives had previously worked for Chinese government agencies or state-owned technology companies, raising questions about the independence of the company's decision-making processes. The Chinese Communist Party maintained an internal committee within ByteDance, as it does with most major Chinese corporations, giving the party direct influence over corporate policies and strategic decisions. Intelligence analysts noted that ByteDance had consistently complied with Chinese government censorship requirements, removing content that criticized Chinese policies and promoting content that aligned with Chinese government messaging, demonstrating the company's willingness to subordinate business interests to state directives. The company had also participated in Chinese government initiatives to develop artificial intelligence and surveillance technologies, including projects related to monitoring and controlling ethnic minorities in Xinjiang province. Former ByteDance employees who spoke to investigators described a corporate culture where Chinese government priorities were regularly incorporated into product development decisions, and where employees understood that certain topics and data categories were subject to government oversight. The interconnected nature of China's technology sector meant that ByteDance shared technical infrastructure, personnel, and resources with companies that were explicitly controlled by Chinese military and intelligence agencies, creating additional pathways for data sharing and government access. The Trump administration's response to TikTok's data collection practices escalated rapidly through 2020, culminating in executive orders that threatened to ban the application entirely unless ByteDance divested its American operations. In July 2020, President Trump told reporters that he was considering banning TikTok, citing national security concerns and describing the app as a potential tool for Chinese espionage. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo publicly stated that TikTok was sharing American user data with the Chinese Communist Party, calling it a threat comparable to other Chinese technology companies that had been restricted from American markets. On August 6, 2020, President Trump issued Executive Order 13942, which prohibited American individuals and companies from conducting transactions with ByteDance, effectively banning TikTok from operating in the United States after 45 days, unless the company found an American buyer. The executive order cited TikTok's automatic capture of vast swaths of information from its users, and warned that this data collection threatens to allow the Chinese Communist Party access to Americans' personal and proprietary information. A second executive order issued on August 14th specifically required ByteDance to divest all interests in TikTok's U.S. operations within 90 days, marking the first time the U.S. government had attempted to force the sale of a foreign-owned social media platform. The Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States opened a formal investigation into ByteDance's acquisition of Musical.ly, the American app that became the foundation for TikTok's U.S. operations. The Treasury Department, which chairs CFIUS, concluded that the acquisition posed risks to American national security and should be unwound. Congressional leaders from both parties expressed support for restrictions on TikTok, with Senator Chuck Schumer calling the app a Trojan horse, and Senator Marco Rubio comparing it to digital fentanyl. The unprecedented government action reflected a broader recognition among policymakers that social media platforms could be weaponized for intelligence gathering and influence operations in ways that traditional national security frameworks were not designed to address. ByteDance's attempts to address American national security concerns proved insufficient to satisfy lawmakers and intelligence officials who understood that technical solutions could not overcome the fundamental legal obligations that tied the company to Chinese government interests. In response to mounting pressure, ByteDance announced in September 2020 that it would partner with Oracle Corporation to store American users' data on servers controlled by the American technology company, an arrangement the companies called Project Texas. Under this proposal, Oracle would have oversight of TikTok's data handling practices and source code, theoretically preventing ByteDance from accessing American user information for intelligence purposes. However, cybersecurity experts noted that the proposed arrangement would still allow ByteDance to control TikTok's recommendation algorithm, the core technology that determined what content users saw and how their behavioral data was analyzed and utilized. The partnership also did not address concerns about data that had already been collected and potentially shared with Chinese government agencies, nor did it prevent ByteDance from using aggregate insights derived from American user behavior to improve its other products and services. Former U.S. intelligence officials argued that any arrangement that left ByteDance in control of TikTok's core operations would be insufficient, because Chinese law would still require the company to cooperate with state intelligence agencies regardless of where data was physically stored. Internal ByteDance documents obtained by investigators revealed that Chinese employees continued to access American user data even after the company had publicly committed to data localization, undermining trust in the company's ability to implement meaningful restrictions. The proposed Oracle partnership also failed to address TikTok's content moderation policies, which had already demonstrated bias in favor of Chinese government positions on sensitive political topics. Security researchers noted that TikTok's mobile application would still contain code written by ByteDance engineers, creating potential backdoors and vulnerabilities that could be exploited for surveillance purposes regardless of where servers were located. The broader implications of ByteDance's TikTok operation extended far beyond privacy violations, representing a new model of technological colonialism where foreign powers could harvest intelligence and shape cultural narratives through seemingly benign consumer applications. The success of TikTok demonstrated that American users, particularly younger demographics, were willing to surrender vast amounts of personal data in exchange for personalized entertainment, creating a template that other foreign adversaries could replicate with different applications and services. Intelligence analysts noted that the detailed behavioral profiles ByteDance had assembled could be used for decades to come, providing insights into American society, culture, and individual psychology that would retain intelligence value long after any immediate data collection had ceased. The precedent set by TikTok's market penetration raised questions about whether American regulatory frameworks were adequate to address the national security risks posed by foreign-controlled social media platforms, advertising networks, and other digital services that had become integral to American life. The controversy also highlighted the challenge of maintaining American technological leadership when foreign competitors were willing to operate applications at a loss for strategic rather than commercial purposes, effectively subsidizing their intelligence operations through below-market pricing and aggressive user acquisition. The global nature of TikTok's success demonstrated that American attempts to restrict the platform could be undermined if allies and partners continued to allow unrestricted operation, potentially creating intelligence sharing obligations that could compromise American national security interests. The case established important precedents for how future administrations might respond to foreign-controlled applications, but also revealed the practical difficulties of enforcing restrictions on popular consumer technology platforms that had become deeply integrated into American digital culture and social interaction. As investigations continue and new administrations grapple with the precedents established during the TikTok controversy, the ByteDance case serves as a watershed moment that fundamentally changed how American policymakers understand the intersection of consumer technology, national security, and foreign influence operations. The revelation that over 100 million Americans had unknowingly participated in what amounted to a massive intelligence collection operation demonstrated that the traditional boundaries between commercial activity and state-sponsored surveillance had been permanently erased in the digital age. The technical sophistication of TikTok's data harvesting, combined with ByteDance's legal obligations to Chinese intelligence agencies, created a new category of national security threat that existing regulatory frameworks were not designed to address. The case also revealed the vulnerability of democratic societies to information warfare conducted through popular consumer applications that could simultaneously collect intelligence and shape public opinion on a scale that would have been unimaginable to previous generations of national security professionals. The response to TikTok's operations established important precedents for presidential authority to restrict foreign-controlled technology platforms, but also highlighted the practical and legal challenges of enforcing such restrictions in a globally interconnected digital economy. Perhaps most significantly, the ByteDance controversy forced a broader recognition that the digital platforms Americans use for entertainment, communication, and commerce could be weaponized against American interests in ways that were subtle, pervasive, and extraordinarily difficult to detect or counter. The data that TikTok collected during its years of operation in the United States represents a permanent intelligence asset that will continue to provide insights into American society and individual behavior, regardless of how the immediate controversy is resolved, ensuring that the national security implications of ByteDance's data harvesting will persist for decades to come.